Welcome to One-on-One with Walt Laskos. In this brief podcast, you'll learn how to most effectively address senior financial exploitation. Now, here's Walt.
Greetings, everyone. Those within the credit union system who know me are fully aware of my respect and support of those who serve our country in the armed forces, both active military, their families, and veterans alike. My show of support goes back, I guess we could say, to my days at WestCorp around the year 2004 when, together with a colleague, Joe Keller, we launched Operation Best Wishes, a program that gave military families the opportunity to send video messages of support over the internet to deployed loved ones during the war in Iraq. So, with that said, you could imagine my reaction when I recently saw a post in social media from Tony Hernandez, CEO of the Defense Credit Union Council, offering his comments about issues military families and veterans face when mistakes occur on their medical bills, which then becomes their burden to correct, and to correct before it pings their credit score. Joining me now to further elaborate about this problem is Tony Hernandez, President CEO of DCUC. So, Tony, exactly what is that issue here?
Well, thanks, Walt, for having me on the show and for allowing us to elaborate just a little bit more. But, you know, our concern with this issue is really just taking care of military and veteran families. And the issue here is a lot of them are covered by TRICARE, which is a large government agency that handles military health care claims. And the problem is a lot of military members and later on veterans still rely on TRICARE to handle their health care needs. A lot of the procedures, are typically covered under TRICARE, but what often happens is the approval process isn't properly coded. Procedures are wrongly keyed in the system. Meanwhile, the military member obtains their referral, goes and sees a specialist, has the procedure or the test performed, and then when it comes time to bill, TRICARE has no record of any approval process, and that leaves the military member or the veteran, stuck with a bill, which they don't pay that. TRICARE is supposed to be paying that, but it goes on their mark. Well, what I would say, Walt, is it gets much worse when the military member is stationed elsewhere, what we call a PCS, a permanent change of station. And those late bill notices continue to stack up at the previous address. And as you can imagine, over time, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days later, that bill is still not paid. It gets turned over to a collection agency. Also generates a credit report history of an unpaid obligation. It's not the fault of the military or the veteran because they did everything they were required to do in getting a referral, in going to scheduling the appointment, and leaving all the documentation, in there for the doctor's office. It's not the doctor's office fault because they need to get paid, and the only person that they know to contact is that military member. And so what happens is that these credit reports stack up, and it's unfair when the military member years later goes to buy their first house, buy a new family vehicle, and they're just marked on their credit report. We saw the CFPB issue guidelines to mask that medical debt off their credit report, but it still doesn't solve the problem. It only temporarily, does that. But that military member still has to fight the bureaucracy to get their bills paid. Same thing with that medical professional or that specialist. And down the range, you get that medical specialist not taking any military members because they're not going to get paid. And so there's all these downrange effects that pile up for military members because a bureaucracy can't get its act together to pay the bills on time. That's the whole thing in a real rather long nutshell, Walt, but I hope that sort of explains where our concern's coming from.
Well, Tony, it's a no-brainer when you think about that. Even if it's just infrequent mistakes occurring, they can be very detrimental to the military member, particularly when they start pinging the credit score. And that impacts their ability to gain credit down the road in their careers. What do you recommend as a remedy right now to help prevent these kind of occurrences?
Well, all you can do is document, the military member. You can document their approval process and what they've done. Keep the documentation. Don't throw it away. That's going to become very key when you go to dispute a credit report or you go to dispute a payment with TRICARE. I would also recommend contacting the CFPB, the Office of Service Member Affairs, and report it. I think with the CFPB looking out for consumer interests as is their mission, this is a huge deal. And again, it's the government trying to police itself on its own processes. Because I think that's where the root cause is at that place. As far as credit unions, like I said, if it's masked on the credit reports, they probably won't see that. But the pain is still there, right? You just put a Band-Aid on the problem. You didn't solve the underlying issue. And I think credit union officials just being aware of the problem, being aware of the reporting, offering some points of contact for that military member or that veteran member to go get some assistance in resolving this credit dispute.
So again, if you just wanted to clarify briefly on that, what should credit union executives know if they happen to encounter a veteran who's a member of their shop relating a situation where he or she was improperly billed like this?
That there are avenues for relief. I would think to check with the CFPB. There's also the DODIG process to report a complaint. And then last but not least is write your member of Congress, right? Once Congress gets involved and can do those inquiries, we tend to see a lot of things clear up right away. And so I would just say be aware of the situation. It happens a lot. As you know, military members and veterans were placed in very unique training situations or actual combat where they get injured, and they have to have these tests done, to take care of their long-term health. And so it is an issue. And if more providers, medical providers, stop serving veterans, and that limits the choices where they can go to get the relief they need, which is actually an obligation we owe our veterans for their service, for the injuries they sustained while on active duty. And it's just taking care of veterans, not just financially, but medically as well.
Absolutely, Tony. I mean, I could not agree more. I've said so many times that we actually do not do enough for our veterans, particularly the wounded warriors, for all that they go through and their families go through, defending our country. I think it's so important. Tony, I really appreciate you taking time today to talk to us about this issue. And if there are any credit union executives that want to follow up with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Sure, we'll look to put something on our website, just a fact sheet at dcuc.org. We don't have that up right now, but it's easy to put up a page or two on where to go get information, plus everything we just talked about on this podcast as well. And at least that's a starting point. DCUC can't resolve the medical debt on our own, but we can at least point people in the right direction on where to go get the assistance that they need.
Tony, again, thank you so much for taking a couple minutes today to talk about this. I really appreciate all that you do at DCUC and all that DCUC does for our families and military throughout the world. Appreciate it much.
Thanks, Walt. Pleasure to be here.
And thank you all, too, for listening today. Stay safe.
If you've enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to follow One-on-One with Walt Laskos wherever you get your podcasts. Feel free to send comments to walt@laskoscommunications.com. And to learn more about how you might support the prevention of elder financial scams, visit lascoscommunications.com.